welcome to the Mindset Michele TV show. We're so super excited for you to be joining us for yet another fabulous guest to share their insights and tips on how you can create a successful mindset. And today's extra special guest is the lovely Tim Somerville. Hello, Tim.
Oh, hi, Michele.
It's so lovely having you on the show today. And for those of you that haven't come across Tim before, he's such a lovely gentleman. You have been missing out. His background is one as a lawyer. So Tim, as you can see, has a few years' experience as a lawyer, and he's been doing it for nearly 50 years now. And also, incredibly, has his own practice that he's been in for 40 years in North Sydney. I can't think of anybody I know that's had the same job for that long or also had the same office that long. It's quite an achievement nowadays, Tim. And for hobbies, he's very keen on windsurfing, which is yet another fabulous story. So, Tim, please, I know it may have been a little while ago now, but explain to people, how did you come to have a love of law and to set up your own business in the legal area? People, I'm sure, are fascinated to hear what has your journey been.
Okay, well, first of all, when I was choosing my career, there's a lot of doctors in my family. Two of my brothers are neurologists, and there's other doctors floating about, but I couldn't stand the sight of blood. So I decided to be a lawyer also from a very early age, including as soon as I became a rebellious teenager. I enjoyed arguing, so I thought, well, rather than argue with people for nothing, I may as well get paid for it. So these days, most people have various aspects to their career, but I've got all 10 fingers in one pie. I left school and went straight to university where I did arts law, and from there straight into a legal office. And I've been doing that ever since. I started as an article clerk a bit over 50 years ago now, became admitted to as a lawyer, and then 40 years ago I was working as a partner in a firm in the city where I thought I was doing all of the work, and the other partners were doing a lot less than I was. I tried to negotiate something a bit more favourable. We didn't agree, so I decided to set up my own practice. The partnership agreement that we had said that I was prohibited from practicing in the city of Sydney, so I set up a practice in North Sydney. My partners said no. When we said not in the city of Sydney, we went Wollongong or Newcastle or somewhere, but their lawyers, they drafted it. So here I am in North Sydney. I thought I'd be here for a short time, but things moved on, and I've been here for 40 years now. Yeah.
Wow. And I love speaking with people like yourself, Tim, because it reminds me, no matter what the time and place, that rebellious teenager, that's kind of a timeless element, and also very insightful to recognise that you could make a career out of it as being a lawyer and arguing with the law. I love that story, and I love the journey, and even the recognition that you were doing most of the work, and to go out and then be very creative and go, well, I won't be in Sydney, I'll be across the bridge in North Sydney. That's also very clever and very lawyerish, looking for those loopholes. With such an accomplished career and having achieved so much over that time, I'm interested, what do you think success now means to you?
Well, success has meant various things to me over the years. When I first established the practice, I had a wife, a young baby, and my wife was expecting our second baby, and we just bought a house with a mortgage that I couldn't afford. So certainly my definition of success in the early years was survival. Over the last 40 years, as the practice has grown, there have been various financial challenges, which I won't go into in detail, but, change to the law and all that sort of stuff. So there's been questions of survival since. But at this stage of my career, where, money is not all that vital, my main definition and criterion of success is being trusted, and being my criterion is that of the hundreds of clients I've acted for over the years, if somebody says to them, "Do you know a good lawyer?" they immediately say, "Yes, Tim Somerville." So that's sort of my criterion for success, is being a trusted advisor and lawyer. Yeah.
And I really hear you. In today's day and age, where people can look up things on Google and you can find 100 lawyers perhaps. One of the fascinating things has been that people then go to their local community sites and say, "Do you know somebody?" So I love how your definition of success is that even if the technology's changed, it's still you are the person that they think of when recommending. Do you know a lawyer? Do you know somebody I can speak to? And I think that being the trusted advisor, it's a little bit like having a doctor or somebody that really knows deep and intimate details around your life that you don't want known public necessarily. So having a legal relationship with somebody, I can really hear it's that trust, and it's being the advisor, being the specialist that people speak to about things that they may not always necessarily want known to the rest of the world.
Yeah, that is correct. And it's just interesting where clients come from over the years. Sometimes I get a referral. Sometimes I say, "Who referred you?" And they say some name I've never heard of. And in fact, it was somebody they spoke to who spoke to somebody else who was one of my clients. Or occasionally, I've had a situation where a client will come to me, or I'll tell you one specific one. A client once came to me and I asked where he came from, and he mentioned the name of somebody. And I said, "Hang on, that's the guy I sued," and I gave him a really hard time. And he said, "Yep." I said to my friend that I had a really difficult problem. I needed a real bastard to help me, and he immediately referred to you. I think that was a compliment, but I'm not sure. And that person became a client for many years. Yeah.
I remember even I loved Jack Reacher, and I watched the movie recently again, or was it Jack Ryan? One of those. And it was exactly that. There was somebody that got put in jail in the movie, and they asked for Jack Reacher. I think it was Jack Reacher, specifically because of that, because they got in trouble and Jack Reacher had thrown the book at them before.
Yeah.
But they then knew how thorough and how fair. So I see that as an incredible compliment, Tim, that people are referring you even if they lose to you, because they know how thorough and how hard you work.
Yeah, that's right.
Given that you've got this number of years of experience and reputation in the market, and also I love how you described how over the 40 years of your business, there was quite a number of years I've heard there where it was about survival. Success was surviving the next week, the next month, the next year. Yeah. What sorts of tips and suggestions do you have for people about how they can, you have a unique perspective because you really are speaking from someone that survived over a long period of time. So what sort of suggestions do you have for people?
Well, I suppose it might sound a little bit like a cliche, but, when things get tough, keep going. And especially in the sort of work that I do, sometimes you need a great deal of determination. Can I just briefly mention a large case that I've just completed, where my wife and I went on a cruise in the south of France just over 10 years ago. When we got there, the river was flooded, so they put us on buses and put us in cheap motels. When I came back, I asked the cruise company to give me a small refund. They didn't agree and sort of insulted me, so I built a website, started a class action, and that went on for 10 years. And we just settled it for $26 million. So,
wow, $26 million, and that's a lot of determination for 10 years.
Yeah,
Yeah, and I really do hear you weren't asking for all of your money back. You were again being reasonable, and then when the cruise company wasn't being reasonable in return, you started the class action and went from there.
yes, it was never my intention initially to take it that far, but I won't go into the details of it, but they definitely insulted me and insulted my intelligence, and so I thought they've probably done that to everybody. So we started the class action. We ended up with about 1,200 people in the class, because I found out they'd done it to over a dozen other cruises. Yeah.
Wow, and it's interesting. It's quite a topical subject, this, given what's been happening in recent years, and people kind of discovering that people power. But the element that I want to focus on is around that determination. And as you said, you didn't start out 10 years ago thinking it would take 10 years or that it would be worth $26 million. Your point and your suggestion, which I really hear, is about to just keep going, just keep working at things a little bit at a time and day by day.
Yes, exactly. But I think another important aspect of success, certainly in my industry, but I think it relates to other industries as well, is the way you treat your clients. I suppose that sounds like a cliche, but I think a lot of people, underestimate the intelligence of their clients. A lot of what I do is pretty technical, so you could sort of get away with misleading clients into getting you to do more work than they need. But I think people are smarter than you realise. And so if you do a good job for them and get a result in a quick and economic way, I think they appreciate and understand it. I mean, often a client will come to me with a problem. They think it's a problem that's going to take a huge amount of work and legal costs, and I can sometimes find a quick, cheap solution, which at that time does me out of fees, which is fine. But I know that that client's going to be a client forever and is going to refer their friends. So it just makes sense to don't underestimate the intelligence of your clients. I think they can see through what you're doing, and they can tell whether or not you've got their interests at heart. I think that applies to a lot of industries.
I was thinking about when I changed mechanics one time. I went to one mechanic and he wanted to do this, this, and this. And I went driving to get a second opinion from another mechanic, and he did exactly what you're describing. He gave me a different solution, saved me lots of money. It was still legal, and I still made the changes I needed to do with my car. But I then recommended him exactly what you're describing, recommended him, and went back to him for many, many years after that. So the cost benefit of losing a little bit of money up front far would have outweighed the being a long-term loyal supporter. And again, coming back to that key part of what you're describing about the way that you're treating people, I think that this is a great insight into how your business has survived for 40 years and grown over that 40 years. Your customers and your clients will have recognised that they're more than a dollar figure or an hourly billing rate. that you actually are genuinely involved in what they're doing and can care about what you're doing with them, and will look for the best option. And again, that's incredibly priceless.
Yeah. Maybe another thing I should mention that applies to my industry, perhaps probably to other service industries, but it's the firm has expanded over the years. We've now got a staff of about 35 people, and a lot of lawyers won't engage a new employee until they're absolutely swamped with work and are giving clients terrible service. I try to anticipate, and when I put on a new lawyer, sometimes to everybody's shock and dismay, that lawyer is not fully busy, but I know that the work is expanding, and if you don't have anybody in your business that has any capacity to take on more work, then it kind of automatically means that you can't expand. So try to, certainly with a workforce, try to anticipate what you're going to need rather than wait until it's already a problem, which I describe as management by crisis.
I love these insights again. I keep thinking, you know, in recent years with Australia and the example of the airlines and them not having the staff or the this or the that. What a different world we would live in if we had more people like yourself, Tim, hiring people in anticipation. In some of the spiritual stuff that I've studied, they also would describe that as acting as if. So you're hiring somebody because you trust that you're going to be getting more work. So you're acting as if your firm is expanding. So even though the work hasn't quite arrived on the doorstep yet, by having somebody there, you're saying to the universe, well, I'm ready. I'm ready to expand. And so here's the person ready to do that work. I think that that's very, very visionary of you and Tim, and inspiring to have that recognition that they may be having a little bit of space at the beginning, but I'm sure that, you know, they very quickly get filled up and are busy. And then you're looking for the next hire and the next hire, as you were talking about.
Yeah, that's right. And of course, another important thing for success, again, forgive me if I'm stating the obvious, but I work in an industry where you've got to work pretty hard, and I do, but it's very important to keep some time for yourself. I've got a family with 4 lovely sons and 8 grandchildren, so I try to find time for them. As you mentioned, I enjoy windsurfing. In fact, I took yesterday afternoon off because it was such a beautiful day. So, yeah, slightly stating the obvious, but work-life balance is very important, especially if you want to have a long career.
And I think that, you know, out of all the people I've spoken to and interviewed over the years, when talking about it being a marathon, not a sprint, I mean, you're like a living example of being a marathon. So I love when I hear you talking about time for yourself, you know, with the children and the grandchildren and the office and the this and the that, still recognizing, okay, this is the perfect conditions for the windsurfing. So I'm going to take some time off yesterday. I'm sure you finished windsurfing, went home, said hello to everybody, and then started working again. But you still over the years have learned that it's that balance, which is wonderful. You so wonderfully put there, taking time for yourself, whether it's away from family commitments or work commitments or other kind of life commitments, having that joy and that hobby to help you to keep. I always think of it as being like going to the garage and filling up the gas and the petrol or electric now, filling up the car. This time that people take for themselves and doing the self-care is that similar kind of taking time for self and refilling the car.
Yeah, no, it is important. I agree. Yeah.
And did any of your sons, I'm just interested, did any of your sons become lawyers as well, or doctors?
Yes, my oldest son is a lawyer. He works with me. He's been working with me for about 12 years. And my second son is an anaesthetist, a doctor anaesthetist, which he describes as a good gig. And the other two sons run a chain of backpacker hostels.
Oh, wow. So it sounds like you've got a real collection there, and I'm sure with the grandchildren, that the collection of interesting worlds and lifestyles would continue as well. Again, given that this is a rare opportunity to speak to somebody with, such a wealth of experience and marathon of examples, Tim, what would you say? I always love to ask people like yourself, you would have, when you were going through those times of survival, and do I hire staff now? Do I have to let somebody go? Do I this? Do I that? What were some of the things that really helped you to keep going, to keep faith that this was a difficult patch, but you would get through it? What do you think was some of the things that helped you to know that this would pass?
Well, very much the support of my wife. I might mention that I used to have a personal injury practice where all of the work that you do is on spec, so you only get paid at the end, and that is very draining on cash flow. And there have been times we've just about run out of cash altogether. We've been kind of on the point of just about losing the house, and felt like giving up, but my wife always encouraged me and just had faith that we've got through it in the past, so we'll get through it again. So I suppose it's hard to give that as a tip, but if you've got a good supporting person in your life, that certainly helps.
Oops. That's okay. Somebody's wanting some support, and as we're speaking to you. And I think you raise a really great suggestion and tip around the people that you have around you. So whether it's your wife or another close and dear friend of some sort, having somebody to support you through those more challenging or difficult times, and to really be with you when you nearly lose it all, and to come back. And then when you go through it the second and the third, and I know it doesn't just happen once, but to have that person with you so that you grow through those challenges together, and then you learn to trust them when they say, yes, this will pass, we'll get through it, life will go on, and the business will become more and more successful, etc. Do you think that
Sorry. Sorry, I don't know how to stop it.
Fun there with the phone.
There's a do not disturb button, but I don't know where it is.
That's all right, Tim.
Sorry.
That's fine. Do you think that having your wife and having gone through it, I imagine the first time it was really scary, and then the second time and the many times, having your wife be that partner with you through those difficult times helped you to realize more and more that you would get through it?
Yes, for sure. And I remember quite a while ago when our debtors were getting a bit out of control, I had a discussion with my wife and said everything would be fine if people just paid their bills. So she came in to the office and started working and chasing the debtors, and she did that for 25 years, which definitely helped. And having her in the office certainly gave me some moral support as time went by. Yeah,
the moral support, and also interestingly the operational support that you're talking about there. So I think as suggestions and tips, what we're talking about is knowing what to delegate. So if you're busy, and many people in small businesses do stay busy on the sales side of it, or the operational expertise, because you're the person with that knowledge that the clients are hiring, and elements of the behind the scenes, like the debtors and people paying bills, can kind of fall behind. So I can really hear about the support from someone close to you, but also outsourcing things to someone like your wife to actually follow up and make sure that the bills get paid.
Yes, certainly in my business, outsourcing tasks to let me get on with what I think I'm good at is important. As the business started expanding quite a few years ago, I realised that the management side was taking time, and I was heading in the direction that I would have to be either a manager or a lawyer, and I decided I was good at being a lawyer, and I had no particular training or expertise as a manager, so I hired people to manage, and we've still got people on the staff as managers. So I'm the lawyer, I'm not a manager.
Yeah, and I think that this is a really great, even though you wouldn't necessarily think of it as a tip, Tim, it's another great tip around recognizing, you explained it so beautifully, but recognizing I'm a lawyer, not a manager. Yeah. And knowing when to get in people with those different skill sets to complement your business.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So, Tim, I can see we're coming towards time, and I know there'll be lots of people watching that might be going, oh, I need a lawyer. I know somebody that needs a lawyer. What's the best way for them to get hold of you?
Oh, probably the usual LinkedIn. But my name is Somerville with only one M. Most people spell it with two. If you spell it with one, you'll find me. Alternatively, you can fairly easily Google me, or Google Somerville Legal, or Somerville Legal's on LinkedIn as well. I'm fairly easy to find.
Oh, fabulous. You reminded me of me, Michele with one L, saying the Somerville with one M.
Yeah.
It's one of those things that you always end up explaining.
Yes.
And finally, Tim, if you were to give some advice to your younger self, what do you think that advice might be?
Well, I've sort of thought about career choices. As I said, two of my sons run a chain of backpacker hostels, which are very successful, and the main thing they do in the business is try to have interesting young people have fun. So it seems like a much more fun thing to do. So I've sort of thought about whether I would advise myself to do something a bit more fun than being a lawyer, which can be confrontational and hostile. But I think if I thought about it, as I've thought about it more, I think the answer is I'd probably advise myself to do exactly what I have done, because I think it's something that, it sounds like a cliche to say I was born to it, but it's something that very much suits who I am. So I think I can't think of much that I would say to my younger self other than to do what I have done.
I did hear a little bit about, yes, do what you have done, but perhaps a little bit more fun. Is that what I was hearing in there?
Yeah. I think maybe I've driven myself a little bit too hard over the years. Quite frankly, the occupation of practicing law, it's hard to describe that as fun. I mean, I enjoy it. I get a lot of satisfaction out of it, but fun is not a word that leaps to mind. So it'd be nice to do something that's a bit more fun, but I don't think that's really something that suits my personality. So I think I'd advise my younger self to do exactly what I have done.
And that's wonderful. Again, that's an incredible awareness, Tim, that you're wonderfully and beautifully sharing, all the way from, the younger you who understood that the rebelliousness could be put to work to become a lawyer and make a career out of it, through to the hard-working, newly minted lawyer going, well, these other partners aren't working as hard as me, so I'm going to go and open my own office, all the way through to getting close to the edge there a few times, and then your wife coming in and helping with some of the back office stuff. And as things settle down, then recognizing, okay, I'm a lawyer, not a manager, bringing in those skill sets and expanding. Tim, it's been such an honor and a privilege to go through and hear this incredible journey that you've been on through your life and through your journey. Thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Okay, Michelle, I've really enjoyed it. Thanks very much. I enjoyed talking to you.
And to all the viewers, thank you again for coming to yet another interesting show with very different insights again. It's not often we have the honour and the privilege to be able to speak to somebody with such a long and distinguished career. But for now, from my heart to your heart, be great, be fabulous, and be you.